Open mic!
From the Edwin B. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Open Mic Show. I'm Tim Coco, your host. Chris Porter is producing in Master Control. Tonight, well, we're a little backed up on guests because last week, Haverhill Community Television, HC Media, had its annual meeting, and as a result, there was no one at the studio to put on this program. So we took the week off, and we're back now, and we should have birthdays because we normally do the Albide's Second Generation Italian Bakery cake contest the last Monday of the month, and because we weren't on, Chris is going to bring me that hat now. Speaking of birthdays, we want to wish listener Marcel a happy birthday. Her birthday is tomorrow. I understand she's turning 29, so happy birthday, Marcel. Coming up on the program tonight, as I said, we're backed up on guests, and I'm not sure who will be on first. I guess it depends on who gets here first, but we're going to have Haverhill School Committee man Scott Wood coming on the program to talk about Parkinson's disease and what he's doing in fundraising efforts to combat that disease. Also, we're going to have Katrina Hobbs-Everett on. She is the co-CEO of Pose Inc. I think that's the Power of Self-Education. I'll look that up in a second. She's been on before. She wants to give us an update on what is being called the school-to-prison pipeline and some data that will show you when she's here that she presented to the Haverhill School Committee last Thursday is frankly a little bit surprising that the school department, at least it appears, and we'll try to get other opinions on this as well, and someone from the school department to be here, but it appears the school department is not fully compliant and is actually mostly not compliant with Mass General laws on this issue of how you suspend students, how long, whether they're given an education while they're out of school, and that kind of thing. Katrina will give us more information. Actually, because we have Scott Wood here, maybe we'll ask that question of him as well. But he's here primarily to discuss the Parkinson's disease matter. All right, you can watch and listen to the Open Mic Show for the next 2 hours on Haverhill Community Television, Channel 22 in Haverhill on Comcast. You can also watch in high definition at WHAV.tv on your computer or smartphone, and we're also live broadcasting in high definition to Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, go to the WHAV page. Please like WHAV while you're there, and you can watch the broadcast in full high definition. Facebook's done a pretty good job with setting that up. So we'd like to hear from you if you're using the Facebook feed. It's pretty good. You can also watch at WHAV.tv, as I mentioned, and on your smartphone. You can also listen to WHAV 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at WHAV.net on AM radio 1640. And we are actually possibly only weeks away from the launch of the new WHAV FM at 97.9. We're going to talk a little bit about that a little later because we need your help. As always, nonprofits need your help. But this one's pretty exciting. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about it now. Pretty exciting. Do you remember people like Joe Clemente on WHDH? Well, he got his start at WHAV in the 1950s, and he is going to be one of many at the WHAV reunion of the Radio Stars Wednesday, June June 8th at Maria's right here in downtown Haverhill. It's in the Galleria Banquet Hall on Essex Street. Joe Clemente is going to be here and live and in person. We're going to have Joanne Duty, who you might remember. She also got her start at WHAV and went on to WFNX and WBOS and The River, so on and so on. Eric Scott, Mark LeMay, let's see, Scott. No, I already mentioned Scott. I had to get my list out, but it's packed, and more guests are coming. So mark your calendars. Reunion of the Radio Stars, Wednesday, June 8th in downtown Haverhill. It's a wine extravaganza, great food, and I'm sure we'll have, non-alcoholic beverages as well. And it's $45 a person, and I know that that's hard for some of you. It's frankly hard for us, but we've seen other functions lately, $100, $125, and no, we're certainly never going to go there. I've tried to keep this open to the public. If you buy a table of 10, and we are asking the Haverhill Service Clubs to do that because WHAV reports their news when it happens. So $425 for a table 10, a little discount. But it's really exciting to have Joe Clemente, very well known at WHDH, big-time newscaster, back at his roots to help celebrate WHAV FM 97.9 going on the air at long last. So just need a little bit more money if you can help us out with that. Also, on cable television, WHAV is heard as usually the background sound behind those community announcements on Andover Channel 8, Methuen Channels 8 and 22 on Comcast, Channel 32 on Verizon Fios, Plasto Channel 17, Sandown also on Channel 17. We had a report this afternoon from Corporal Boucher, who reported that he has discovered that HAV is no longer on Channel 99, the Haverhill Education Channel. Maybe one of you out there can confirm if that's true. I frankly don't understand what the problem is. There used to be, according to the school department, there was no programming on Channel 99 before noon or after 10 p.m. Now that WHAV wants to be on that channel as the background sound, it is now packed to the rafters with programming, repeat after repeat after repeat, just to keep us off the air. At least some say that. Maybe someone can confirm whether that's true or not. But in any event, when FM comes, you'll be able to get us anywhere, possibly even on your refrigerator, if you remember how strong signals are around here. But also, you can also listen to WHAV on your Apple TV. Go to your radio button and choose Golden Oldies, then WHAV. If you have a Roku TV box, you can also pick up WHAV with the TuneIn app. And of course, TuneIn is available also on smartphones and many other appliances, so keep that in mind. Okay, if you're just joining us, about 20 minutes before the top of the hour, we have Scott Wood, Haverhill School Committee man, coming on the program in a bit to talk about his efforts to combat Parkinson's disease, not personally, we hope, and what he's doing for fundraising. We also have Katrina Hobbs-Everett on the program to discuss the latest numbers, statistics about how Haverhill schools are complying with the law surrounding this topic, this school-to-prison pipeline. I will summarize very briefly. It appears that there is data to suggest that the way we punish our students may very well be what forces them into lives of crime. So we'll learn more about that as well. Okay, let's do the birthdays for, these were what? These were May birthdays? Yes, they were May. I always confuse this at the beginning of the month. But so This would have been drawn the last week of April, but for the fact that we were preempted. So these were May birthdays. So let's shake up the hat and see who wins the May birthday. And, of course, the winner receives a free 7-inch cake from Albie D's second-generation Italian bakery, 140 South Main Street in Bradford. Oh, look at this. It's a coincidence, folks. I wished Marcel a happy birthday, and Marcel actually is the winner of the May birthday cake. See, Chris, prove it. Okay, see, no games, you see. So Marcel has won the birthday cake, free 7-inch cake, choice of vanilla or chocolate from our very generous friends at Albie D's second-generation Italian bakery. All right, I'm going to mark that right now because everyone knows I get confused. So we'll do winner on that. Wasn't that wonderful news? Okay. All right, Chris, you can take the hat away now. All right, and empty it out. Okay. All right. And, of course, we like to give things away on this program, so we have a couple more items here. And I don't remember if we had any particular trivia questions, so we're going to say no. So all you have to do is be the first person to ask, and you can have a free ticket that admits to, it's worth $20, to the Haverhill Police All-Stars game versus the All-Pro Patriots Celebrity Softball Team. Now, this takes place at Haverhill Stadium Monday, June 6th at 6 p.m. Well, if you go, you're going to miss some of open mic, undoubtedly, but you can always watch us on the rerun, which, by the way, is always available at the bottom of the page at whav.net. HAV.TV for that matter, too. All right, so just be the first person to ask, and we can go actually several. So if you just need if it's just 2 people each, then we'll be able to accommodate 2, 4, 6, 8, maybe 10 people. So just request that. 978-374-1900. Just dial the number, go on the air and say, Tim, I want to go to the Haverhill Police All-Stars game. They're playing the All-Pro Patriots Celebrity Softball Team. Or you can just say, give me the tickets, Tim. Give me the tickets, Tim. 978-374-1900 to get those. And, Chris, why don't you put up our What Do You Know slide? All right, that's our, and I'm a president of the board of Whittier Birthplace, and I got rolling eyes from my colleagues when I told them the name of the contest. What do you know? Like, what do you know? What do you know? All right, we had a question out there, and it's been so long I'm not even sure it was answered, so maybe I'll answer the old one and then tell you about the new one. The original question, I believe, was whether what was the name of Whittier's first published poem? I think someone got that, but I'm not sure. But it was called The Exile's Departure. And a bonus question was, in what publication did it appear? Well, it appeared in William Lloyd Garrison's newspaper, the Newburyport Free Press, in 1826. So that was that. But let's start with another one. You get a free pass to Whittier Birthplace. It's now open for the season, 305 Whittier Road, right here in Haverhill. It's a beautiful first period home, goes back more than 300 years. Whittier was born there in 1807. All right. Here's some trivia. No American poet owes more to Robert Burns than John Greenleaf Whittier. Whittier and Burns shared a rural background. Whittier always kept a copy of Burns' poetry in his pocket while doing his chores on the family farm. To Burns, he wrote a poem called Burns on receiving a sprig of heather in blossom. So Robert Burns inspired John Greenleaf Whittier. All you have to tell me, and frankly, you could guess, and you might win. At what age did Whittier discover Robert Burns' poetry? Now, if you want the free ticket to Whittier Birthplace, just call 978-374-1900. answer the question or take a guess. If you don't want the ticket but you know the answer, keep it to yourself. We want to give these tickets away. Now, if you want to privately text me or something, fine. But if you want to go to Whittier Birthplace, absolutely free. And by the way, there's 120,000 bees there. Now, they're not loose, don't worry. Well, they're sort of not loose. But it's one of the attractions at the birthplace. Thanks to Haverhill License Commissioner and Attorney Joseph Edwards. He's a beekeeper. Many people may not have realized that, and he has assembled, along with one other gentleman, new beehives at Whittier Birthplace. So that's an attraction in and of itself. The cows are either there or coming, and more of them this year across the street from the birthplace in the field. You might find that exciting. So at what age did Whittier discover Robert Burns' poetry? Just answer the question on the air, and you'll receive a free pass to John Greenleaf Whittier Birthplace. I've managed to talk so long, I'm almost past a break. So why don't we take a brief break this hour for this day in Massachusetts history, and we'll be back with more of the Open Mic Show in just a minute.
Open Mic!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
The Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom turns out local programs every day and night. Tune in for local news, community spotlight, and the Open Mic Show. WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source, and it's always free.
Catch the wave!
The most trusted man in America, news anchor Walter Cronkite, once said, "It is absolutely essential in a democracy to have competition in the media, a lot of competition." That sentiment is one of the driving forces behind WHAV's expanded local news effort. This is News Director Dana Esmail inviting you to listen to my hourly weekday newscasts right here on WHAV. You'll also find the area's most comprehensive local news reporting at whav.net on your computer or smartphone. Remember, WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source, and it's always free.
And that's the way it is.
Today is May 2nd. On this day in 1940, the German-born architect Walter Gropius and his wife Isa opened their new home in Lincoln to some old friends, the great composer Igor Stravinsky and his wife Vera. Gropius had designed the house according to the principles of the Bauhaus, the European school of architecture that he founded in 1919. Modest but graceful, the house integrated modern industrial materials with elements of traditional New England buildings. But the house was more than an architectural attraction. It was a warm home. In the words of daughter Ottie Gropius, there was a never-ending parade of visitors, faraway friends, strangers, and students marching through the house at all hours of the day. Today, it is a National Historic Landmark. For more about this and other Mass Moments, go online to massmoments.org. Brought to you by the Massachusetts Foundation for the Humanities.
WHAV Open Mic!
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
And welcome back to the Open Mic Show, a 50-year staple of democracy in the Merrimack Valley. Actually, more than 50 years, but we'll maybe update that when we get to 60. All right. Anyway, radio listeners probably can't tell what I'm doing, but television viewers can. I am holding something. It's not a trivia question, but maybe you know what it is. You know, it's got an earpiece and a microphone, and it goes on your head like this, And what am I? Well, I'm a telephone operator if I wear that. And Chris has some slides. Back in 1947, when WHAV first went on the air, it was very loyal to local manufacturers. And one of those manufacturers was Western Electric. Now, Western Electric didn't make some of these things in Haverhill, but they were here. And the general manager of WHAV, Jack Russ, wanted to support local business. I think that's a good idea still. And Chris, you have a slide of the 1947. Okay, so in 1947 in the lobby, one of the things HAV bought was a Western Electric switchboard. Now, curiously, this switchboard, there it is right there in the lobby of the old WHAV. This switchboard, like many things at the original HAV, really kind of goes back to the 1930s, but World War II interrupted all kinds of domestic progress. So when WHAV went on the air in 47, it was virtually a 1930s radio station. But one of the things they had was this Western Electric switchboard. And I'm an enthusiast of all things WHAV, and my spouse saw to it that we would ultimately get the switchboard back here at WHAV. And so for my birthday, we went on a rather long trek up to upstate New York. And Chris, can you show what we picked up there? It is a 1947-ish switchboard, just like the one WHAV used. Identical, in fact, in the lobby. This is going to be cleaned up, rehabbed, and what Chris doesn't know is that that's how he's going to be taking calls for the open mic show going down the road. Actually, Mark LeMay always complains about our phone system, so maybe he can sit and be the operator. So has anyone ever operated one of these out there? I'd like to hear your thoughts. Maybe you were a phone operator, or you filled in one summer, or summer work, or maybe you ran the switchboard at the old Mitchell's department store. Maybe you ran the one at WHAV, and love to hear from you. 978-374-1900. We actually have a manual for how this thing operates. Whether we actually use it or just display it, I'm not sure. But maybe some of you remember off the top of your heads how to operate a switchboard. I've heard these little things where you would tap the edge of the jack with this part, this thing here. And if it was, if you saw a little bit of a spark or a click, you knew that line was in use, and you didn't press that one or didn't plug it into that. Maybe one of you knows. So 978-374-1900. I neglected to say at the beginning of the program, if you're shy, and you can't win a prize this way, but if you want to just send me a note, you can also email me directly at tcoco, Tcoco, at whav.net. Or you can use the message board below the TV screen at whav.tv. There's an old message there right now from David Goudsworth about the lights seem to be flickering in the studio. Well, I don't know what it was, but maybe they were. But you can put a message right there, and I'll take a look at that, and I'll take a look at my emails in case you want to write to me directly. All right. So, quiet night here. I don't understand it. Now, normally a summer night, maybe, you'd have to cook out, but it's kind of a dreary, cold, rainy night. So come on. Don't be shy. Pick up the phones, 978-374-1900. All right, coming up after the news at the top of the hour, well, I'm not sure what order they'll be in. It depends on who will be here first, I suppose. But we'll have Haverhill School Committee man Scott Wood on the program to discuss Parkinson's disease. Pretty serious. And, Parkinson's disease sort of made the news last week when our Register of Deeds in southern Essex County, I know there are other problems symptoms in the Northern District, but in Southern Essex, a real great figure in combating mortgage foreclosure fraud by the banks. John O'Brien Jr., Register of Deeds, he announced last week, as WHAV reported first, I think reported before anyone in the state first, that O'Brien, who's only 64 years old, has Lewy body dementia with Parkinsonian symptoms. It's a progressive disease. He believes he's able to continue working and will seek re-election, but it really drives home the message that this is something that we need to combat. So Scott Wood will be on the program to talk about that. And then we'll also have Katrina Hobbs-Everett. She is going to talk about the school-to-prison pipeline and some new data that she has presented to the Haverhill School Committee. All right, let's try to work in a quick call before we go to news. You are on the open mic.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Somebody should call.
Wait a minute, I'm
me.
Okay, you know what's funny is that another person showed up here that he just told me not to tell him who he is. But all right, Brian, what's on your mind?
Nothing much. I just can't think of any June birthdays. My May one didn't win, and so I'm on the opposite side of the streak.
Oh. What's that about the opposite side of the street?
No, not streets. My winning streak, my losing streak.
Oh, streak.
Is going to catch up with my winning streak.
I know, yeah. Now you're behind. You don't even have one to enter, huh?
No, I can't think of anybody. I was just telling Chris, the only June person I can think of is Dr. Finkelman, and he's not around Haverhill anymore.
Oh. Well, maybe you should hang out in front of Market Basket and see if you can find a new friend with a June birthday.
Yeah. Oh, there got to be some June people out there. But, speaking of the TV station, Darlene's father just passed away.
Yes, I'm aware of that. We ran the obituary on WHAV.
Yeah, that's where I read it.
What's that?
That's where I read it.
Oh, yes. No, that's a terrible thing in any family, yes.
It is, so my condolences to her sister.
And I agree with you, yes.
Maura used to live in my
condolences to the family, yes, thank you. Very thoughtful of you. So did you ever operate a switchboard, Lieutenant?
Oh, that's before my day.
Really, I know. It's actually becoming before anyone's day. But we're going to...
I had a toy one as a kid.
You had a toy switchboard?
Yeah.
I didn't know they made toy switchboards.
Oh, they did. And I remember it was kind of a gold color, and it had these little pegs that looked just like the same ones on my winter coat. And they had these little white strands. They weren't string exactly. They were thicker than that. But, they were cool looking. You could just plug them in.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Okay, so Chris will put on the screen the original HAV switchboard and then the one that we've just picked up. It'll be a nice little ornament in the lobby, but maybe you know me. I'll want to wire it up and make our news director sit at it or something. I don't know, but we'll see how that goes. All right.
I'm going to try to make it to your fundraiser.
Oh, wow, great.
I think that would be fun. You said Joanne Duty's going to be there?
Yes, actually, I didn't do a good job with the list, but Eric Scott, Joanne Duty, Joe Clemente, of course, who later went on to WHDH, is going to be there. Billy Maxwell is going to be there, and I wonder if our anonymous guest in the hallway knows who Billy Maxwell is. Billy Maxwell Masick. Bill Masick was on the radio on many stations, beginning at WNBP in Newburyport.
Oh, yeah.
He used an assumed name, and then when he worked at two radio stations at the same time, one of the radio stations, according to Bill, said, well, you can't be Billy Maxwell on both of us. So during the middle of the show, he became Rick Adams.
Oh, Rick Adams.
So,
did he own both of those stations, or?
No, that's before he got into the ownership business. So he's a great person. But Joanne Duty, of course, went on to WFNX, WXRV, WBOS. Also, Paul Belfay, who, no one knows how to spell his name, but that's how you pronounce it, Paul Belfay. Now, he is actually an actor these days with some really big screen credits to his name, and not just in the background. He's with big speaking roles. So he's another one. And we have some others that we're just not quite ready to announce, but they're pretty big if they come through. And I don't want to jinx it by.
Okay, is it a dress-up affair?
It's a wine tasting. Just come like a Haverhill person. Blue jeans, torn T-shirt. No.
That's all I got.
No. I mean, whatever you're comfortable wearing. It's not a big dress-up affair. Although I think people will really enjoy it, and if we can get the money together to finish up this FM transmitter, who knows? It might be the inaugural broadcast of WHAV FM 97.9. I'm going to get used to saying that.
Yep. I wonder if Joanne's brothers, Howdy and KP, are going to be there.
We have another comedian here. Okay.
Pretty corny. You talk about rolling eyes.
Yes, well, yeah, I'm pretty good about getting that started too. So, Brian, anything else in your mind? Otherwise, we are late for news.
Let's go to news.
All right. Hey, feel free to call back later.
All right, sir.
Hey, thanks so much.
Have a good one.
Take care. All right, we'll be back with more of the Open Mic Show, and if they're here, Scott Wood and or Katrina Hobbs-Everett tonight here on the Open Mic Show. We'll be back after the news.
Open mic!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
It's 7:05.
WHAV LP Haverhill. WHAV is a nonprofit community service of Public Media of New England, Incorporated.
Here's what's happening in local news. 3 professionals will be on hand Tuesday, May 3rd to help parents of middle school children who may be at risk for substance abuse. Preventing Substance Abuse in Middle School Students features Dr. Maddox, a pediatrician and school physician, Laura Mayer, district clinician and substance use liaison, and Lori Curry, middle school health educator. There will be a panel discussion and question and answer session. Haverhill Police are also participating in the program. It is the district's 4th parent presentation on substance abuse prevention and takes place Tuesday, May 3rd, 6 to 7:30 p.m. at Hunking Middle School Gymnasium, 480 South Main Street. Light refreshments will be provided. Ongoing construction-related daytime street closures for utility work at the Harbor Place project on the eastern end of Merrimack Street are scheduled to continue at least 2 more weeks beginning Tuesday. The latest 2 days per week closures to through traffic with local access to downtown businesses are scheduled Tuesdays, May 3rd and May 10, as well as Thursdays, May 5th and May 12, according to Haverhill Economic Development and Planning Director William Pillsbury, Jr. Quote, full access will be maintained to local businesses, the Goki Deck and Pentucket Bank, Pillsbury said in a statement Monday. As WHAV reported earlier, the temporary Merrimack Street closures and through traffic detours onto House Street to and from Bailey Boulevard began in mid-March and were originally expected to occur through the month of April. The Pentucket Bank drive-through will be accessible through the parking lot in front of the lower-level parking deck entrance and exit onto the intersection of Merrimack, Main, and Water Streets during the closures. 2 area workforce development and community organizations will share in more than $2 million in state grants to help train local unemployed and or underemployed residents for jobs in either transportation or educational services. The Merrimack Valley Workforce Investment Board, which oversees Valley Works Career Centers in Haverhill and Lawrence, will receive a $190,000 state grant, quote, to train for jobs in transportation, according to a statement Friday from Governor Charlie Baker and Secretary of Labor and Workforce Development Ronald L. Walker II. A second agency, Lawrence Community Works, was awarded an equal grant amount to, quote, train for jobs in educational services, end quote. The grants from the Workforce Competitiveness Trust Fund are to, quote, support 14 regional partnerships between businesses, educational institutions, community-based organizations, and workforce development groups, helping prepare more than 370 unemployed and/or underemployed Massachusetts residents with additional skills and job training for in-demand occupations, end quote. The number of grant beneficiaries in the Haverhill-Lawrence area was not specified. Secretary Walker said, quote, statewide, 75% of the people receiving training through Workforce Competitiveness Trust Fund partnerships are unemployed, with a majority classified as low income or receiving a high school diploma or less, end quote. More details are at whav.net. 3 motorists arrested by Haverhill police over the weekend on impaired driving charges are due to be arraigned in district court. Joshua Croteau, 22, of Groveland, was arrested at 8:34 p.m. Saturday on Boston Road and charged with driving under the influence of liquor, alcohol from an open container, and negligent operation of a motor vehicle. Benjamin Lipman, 27, of Ipswich, was arrested by Haverhill police at 9:44 p.m. Friday at 181 Main Street. He was charged with driving under the influence of drugs, reckless operation, and larceny from a person. Jane Steinberg, 55, of 7 Hunters Run Place, Haverhill, was arrested at 9:37 p.m. Friday at 371 Lowell Avenue. She was charged with driving under the influence of liquor and alcohol from an open container. In other police news, 2 Haverhill residents arrested separately and outstanding warrants for unlicensed driving charges, among others, are due to appear in court. Alexis Paniton, 21, of 40 South Warren Street, Haverhill, was arrested by Haverhill police at 2:14 p.m. Sunday at 127 Cedar Street and charged with driving without a license, crosswalk violation, and failure to stop for police. Under a warrant, she was also charged with a prior count of driving without a license, as well as leaving the scene of an accident with property damage and a marked lanes violation. Don Blodgett, 31, of 127 House Street, Haverhill, was taken into custody at 11:58 a.m. Saturday at 100 Plastow Road. Under a warrant, she was charged with driving with a suspended license and a motor vehicle equipment violation. Remember, WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source, and it's always free. In the Edwin V. Johnson newsroom, this is Dana Esmel.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Rebecca Foster. Donald Trump is under fire after he claimed that China's trade policy amounts to the rape of America. His claim came on the eve of a primary election in the U.S. state of Indiana that could see Mr. Trump finally secure the Republican Party's presidential nomination. Simon Marks reports from Washington.
Even by Donald Trump standards, this was an outspoken remark, an accusation that will infuriate the Chinese, whom he accused of raping America through their trade policies. He's made the claim before, but never as a presidential contender. And now he may be on the eve of winning the Republican nomination. He's 15 points clear in Indiana, where Republicans vote tomorrow, and victory there could put him over the top in the quest to become the party's standard bearer in November. Simon Marks, Washington.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry says progress is being made in talks aimed at extending a truce to the Syrian city of Aleppo. A cessation of hostilities has been in place in Syria, but an increase in violence in Aleppo is threatening to derail peace talks. U.S. correspondent William Denslow has more.
John Kerry is in Geneva after the United Nations envoy to Syria, Staffan de Mistura, urged the United States and Russia to help curb a recent escalation in violence in the country. Several hundred people are believed to have been killed in Aleppo last week, with reports of government airstrikes and rebel shelling. Secretary of State Kerry says that the conflict is in many ways out of control, but adds that dignitaries are working to bolster a fragile truce. Members of the Syrian opposition left the peace talks in April, but they are set to resume at an unspecified date.
The European Union is set to open the door for visa-free travel for Turkish citizens as part of a deal between the two sides to tackle the migration crisis. Brussels is believed to be broadly content with the measures Turkey has implemented to meet EU conditions for visa liberalization, despite strong opposition from many lawmakers. Here's our Europe correspondent, Jack Perrock.
Sources within the European Commission in Brussels say they're set to issue a positive recommendation on Wednesday to proceed with giving visa-free travel to Turkish citizens. The Commission set a list of 72 benchmarks, including the introduction of biometric passports and approving legislation on civil liberties and rights. The Turkish Parliament is voting through many of the measures Monday, but resistance in Europe to opening visa-free travel to 75 million Turks remains strong. But it was one of the conditions that Turkey insisted on for the EU to secure their help in returning failed asylum seekers who'd arrived in Greece who'd left Turkish refugee camps. Jack Perrock, Brussels.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Wave weather.
I'm WHAV meteorologist Rob St. Pierre with Wave Weather. We're going to head through tonight with cloudy skies, some pockets of drizzle, areas of dense fog, especially at the coast, and we may see a few showers toward daybreak. Tonight's low will be somewhere in the mid-40s. Tuesday, it's a cloudy day with some showers. Temperatures will be somewhere in the low to mid-50s. Best chance of showers probably be in the morning. And then Tuesday nights, mostly cloudy and foggy, maybe a shower down to 45. Clouds Wednesday, a little bit of sun, a few showers too, though, with a high 55. I'm WHAV meteorologist Rob St. Pierre. Your next Wave Weather in 30 minutes.
If you want to know what's going on at WHAV, sign up for the free monthly Wavelengths newsletter online at WHAV.net. This is Pacifica Radio for the Merrimack Valley, WHAV LP Haverhill, listener-supported community radio.
Catch the wave. WHAV. Merrimack Valley. Open mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
And welcome back to the Open Mic Show. My guest we'll see how long it goes, is Katrina Hobbs-Everett from Pose Inc. Actually, this camera's almost about right, although it looks like you're down the hall from me for some reason, but we'll see how that goes.
Not really that small.
No. But in any event, Katrina Hobbs-Everett's been here before talking about the school-to-prison pipeline, and we have some updated information since that time, and you have made a presentation to the Haverhill School Committee, but maybe before we get into that, can you summarize for our audience what the issues are that have helped lead to the term school-to-prison pipeline?
Sure. So the issues are essentially, this is a nationwide dynamic where the zero tolerance policies that we've implemented in our schools have targeted certain youth and actually do channel them out of school into the prison systems. And the numbers make out that this is predominantly youth with disabilities, high needs youth in neighborhoods in districts that have more minorities. Minorities are disproportionately make up these numbers. And I guess if you're looking at ratio, that does happen here, where we have, let's say there's 8 African American males, and then there's 365 white males that do the same things. There's a 2% suspension rate for both populations. And so there's still although we're talking, much smaller numbers, there's still that disproportionate factor there.
I see what you're saying. Well, nationally, this has received some attention over the last year, especially in the bigger picture when we talk about the United States. I'll use the term ridiculous incarceration rates.
Sure, absolutely.
We have more people, and most of them are minorities, in our prisons than the rest of the world. Come on. There's something odd about this. So it's fair to say that there is, I guess I'm going to say it, discrimination and maybe racism in our justice system.
So there's a direct link to the school-to-prison pipeline and mass incarceration for sure. In fact, I don't know where, so don't quote me on that, but I researched that the way that they learn how to build prisons is based on the African-American male's third grade reading level. And so there is a correlation between...
Really?
Yeah. Statistically, these things have formulas to them. And so, for instance, if you're suspended, you're twice as likely not to graduate than peers who are not suspended. And every subsequent suspension has that factor to it. And so there is a mathematical equation to this stuff.
And we're going to look at some of that data in a minute. We're also going to invite you, if you don't mind, is it still time for people to take the survey?
Yes, please.
Chris, can you put up the slide that says, take the survey? Because it was such a long name, and maybe you'll give us a shortcut way to get to it. We thought we'd present it on the screen for our television viewers so you can actually see the survey.
Great.
Take the survey. And for our radio listeners, unless there's a shortcut, is there a link on
If you search for Power of Self-Education or POSE on Facebook, you should be able to find our Facebook page, and there's a link to the survey in English and in Spanish.
Yes.
And so we are desperately seeking more parents to take this survey. It's very important because there's currently no measure that voices parents' opinions on their views for the school and the community, and that's specifically what we're looking at.
If I may, just for a second, and then maybe we'll take a community spotlight and then come back and talk about the rest of these topics. But just to give you an idea, the questions are not difficult, folks. Are you a current or former parent or a guardian of a student? Yes or no? What school does or did your child attend? Satisfaction with the school system. Then there's various ways you can rate from issues like bullying and so on. Then rating about how your child feels, whether your child has been bullied, yes or no, or not sure, whether your child has gotten into a fight, what improvements you'd like to see, and are you grateful your children attend or attended Haverhill Public Schools? If you don't mind my giving away.
No, it's just 10 questions, and it can be done anonymously. It does not track your, information, your email addresses or any of that nature. They just come to us as straight data.
All right, so Chris will put up that slide again, and we'll take a brief break for Community Spotlight. When we return, we'll get into the nuts and bolts of all of this, and frankly, some shocking statistics from the Haverhill Public Schools. We'll be back with more of the Open Mic Show, and my guest, Katrina Hobbs-Everett of POSE, Inc., in just a moment.
Open Mic!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
This is listener-supported community radio, WHAV. WHAV is the Merrimack Valley's Pacifica affiliate.
Open Mic!
Every Monday night, the Open Mic Show brings interesting guests into your homes, presents your take on current events, and dabbles in little-known local history. I'm Tim Coco, your host, inviting you to join the chorus of community voices beginning at 6:30 Monday nights right here on WHAV. You may also watch this 50-year staple of democracy live at WHAV.tv and Haverhill Community Television, Channel 22. The Open Mic Show was brought to you by Northern Essex Community College, the Merrimack Valley Economic Development Council, and WHAV members. Remember, only local radio can bring you this talk opportunity, but only WHAV does.
Community Spotlight!
The Greater Haverhill Arts Association will have its Student Art Exhibit 2016 during the first 2 weeks of May at Buttonwoods Museum, located at 240 Water Street. The association supports artists by offering workshops for learners of all ages and skills. They also present painting demonstrations by esteemed professional artists. Both opportunities are open to the public. The Student Art Exhibit remains open through May 15th, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Tuesday through Saturday, and Sundays noon to 5 p.m. For more information, visit www.haverhillartassociation.org. Someone you know is on WHAV. To submit or read your own nonprofit announcements, click on the Contact tab at whav.net or email news@whav.net. In the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, this is Diane Carr.
WHAV Open Mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
Welcome back to the Open Mic Show. I'm Tim Coco, your host. In studio right now, Katrina Hobbs-Everett from Pose, Inc., The Power of Self-Education.
Yes.
That's right. And during this segment of our interview, we're going to talk about something, but maybe I can lead into it if you'll let me. I received some information in advance of the program, and if I may quote you.
Sure.
Katrina wrote, "It was both shocking and disturbing to learn that our district, our school district, was largely out of compliance with Massachusetts state law and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's group's regulations, and seemingly have been out of compliance for the past 2 years under State Law Chapter 222. I guess the first thing I'm going to ask is, can you summarize what the state law is?
I wish I could, but this rather lengthy document it's 48. I don't want to miscode. It's 54 in 53 different categories, and so I can't really simplify that. But basically, what it is, it's the way that we deal, the way that we approach discipline, and so it's specifically this is not, because this is a common misconception. This is not. There are emergency removals that happen in schools for suspensions, and that's if you bring a gun in, or if you have, you're trying to sell large amounts of drugs or things of that nature, violent crimes. This is not talking about that.
That's something else.
This is for non-drug related, non-violent offenses.
Okay, my quick reading, if I may, and you can correct me if you catch me doing something wrong. My quick reading of Chapter 222 today was that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in 2012, was it?
Yes.
Decided that when we suspend or expel a student, that does not mean for any reason, and sometimes it's just these minor petty things that students get into, but that we do not stop their education.
That's right.
That they continue to be educated, and I believe there's some reporting requirements. If they're suspended for a long enough period of time, it should capture the attention of the state. If the student, while suspended or expelled, goes to another school system, that school system has to be aware and either put the student into a classroom or make sure that they are at least receiving an education outside of the classroom. Do I have that essentially right?
Yes, even for those youth that I said are kind of harsher, who have committed, who have an emergency removed, they do have the right to their education. And so those policies and procedures should be included in our code of conduct. Currently, they're not.
All right. Maybe we can do this one. Chris, can you put up this slide? And I forgot what it's called, so this is how we do live radio and television. But we have some graphs, and you're going to see them side by side on our TV screen. And for radio listeners, this looks much better in high definition. You can check it out on our live Facebook feed or whav.tv. But I'm seeing a lot of orange in both of these circles, and so maybe we zero in on that. The orange means not compliant.
Correct.
And not compliant means the Haverhill Public School system. You want to take a stab at quickly explaining that the graph on the left, there's 53 categories, and Haverhill is not compliant in 47 of them.
89% non-compliance, correct, for the high school level, and we are 74% non-compliant for our K through 8 level. And it's important to mention that this pie chart I created, but the data came from Harvard Law. And so the Mass Advocates for Children actually sent our code of conduct over to Harvard Law. They did a comprehensive review based on comparing that to the Chapter 222 regulations and what they should be, and gave us back this very lengthy chart that's color-coded and tells us where we are in rates of compliance, because I could not get those answers, unfortunately, from the Haverhill Public School officials.
In the high school, the compliant area, there was one category.
Correct.
Partly compliant were 5, not compliant was 47. Now, I suppose for equal time, I'm going to give someone from the school department, Superintendent Scully, or someone equal time if they dispute this. But let me ask you, you went to school committee last week. Did anyone dispute this?
No, they didn't dispute it. In fact, I was told that our current code of conducts were up to date. And again, that was challenging because the information we received from the Mass Advocates and the Harvard Grad School, and they were in direct communications with the Department of Education. So this is where we send our data. They were the ones telling us that, in fact, they were not up to code. So there was mixed messages there. And
all right. Now, I realize there's a lot more data here, and we don't really have a lot of time to go through it, but can you give us a couple of examples, maybe, of things that are not compliant or partially compliant?
One of the largest that's not in compliance is, like I said, the access to education. And so that's inclusive of students who have suspensions for nonviolent crimes and the students who do have suspensions for violent crimes. That's an issue because not only is it illegal, but that's also against the student's human rights.
Oh, okay. So this is so the student is not getting any kind of education while being on suspension or expulsion, and that is the problem.
The way that our handbook reads, it's very confusing. It's gray, and so it says that students have a right to make up their work during school hours or at the teacher's regular schedule, and then the very following one says that they cannot be on school grounds. And so, how do they access that?
Well, that's a good question. So, did you get an answer to that question?
I was told that sometimes they do library meetings, or that there's, internet connections. Again, it's a conflict, and I really wanted a more candid conversation, because the information that we get from the parents and from the students constantly says that they are not having access. They're not even being informed that their rights to have access.
Well, I guess something worries me about that.
What we wanted to do was take whatever our current policies and procedures were, simplify them for the parents and the students to kind of divert that whole conversation. Look, okay, maybe it's happening, maybe it's not. So what is it?
But let me ask you this. Does every student have internet access if that's the way they're going to get this?
Of course not.
So there's some problems. All right, folks, we have to take it. Can you stay with us a bit? We have to take a brief break for local weather here at WHAV. We'll be back in just a moment with Katrina Hobbs-Everett talking about the school to prison pipeline. We'll be right back.
Open mic!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
It's 7:31.
WHAV is on Facebook. For quick access, visit whav.net and click on the Facebook icon.
Every Saturday, CBS Radio presents Gunsmoke, set in the pioneer days of Dodge City. The adventures you follow on Gunsmoke center around the United States Marshal Matt Dillon. The Marshal is responsible for keeping the peace among the oddly assorted characters who've drifted to the West to make new lives for themselves. When one of them tries to achieve that goal at the expense of somebody else's life, the shooting starts on Gunsmoke. But as soon as the trigger clicks, you can count on Marshal Dillon to get right into the fray. His aim for law and order is as true as his aim with a gun. If you like action, you'll like Matt Dillon's behavior in every episode of Gunsmoke. Balcony fan from way back or fifth row center steady. You'll find your favorite seats reserved for you for Gunsmoke.
Saturday night at 10 p.m. with an encore performance at 1 a.m.
Wave weather.
I'm WHAV meteorologist Rob St. Pierre with Wave Weather. We're going to head through tonight with cloudy skies, some pockets of drizzle, areas of dense fog, especially at the coast, and we may see see a few showers toward daybreak. Tonight's low will be somewhere in the mid-40s. Tuesday, it's a cloudy day with some showers. Temperatures will be somewhere in the low to mid-50s. The best chance of showers probably be in the morning. And then Tuesday night, mostly cloudy and foggy, maybe a shower down to 45. Clouds Wednesday, a little bit of sun, a few showers too, though, with a high 55. I'm WHAV meteorologist Rob St. Pierre. Your next wave weather in 30 minutes.
WHAV Open Mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
This hour of the Open Mic Show is being brought to you by the Merrimack Valley Economic Development Council. Smart companies. Choose the Merrimack Valley. Learn more at merrimackvalley.info. All right, back here with Katrina Hobbs-Everett from the Power of Self-Education in Haverhill. All right, a second note I marked up in advance of the show. You wrote, we have requested that school committee members review the submitted data, which we've given you a little bit of a preview on. We have some more. And can strongly consider our request to choose a Haverhill Public School to partner with our team in strategically and carefully creating and implementing a restorative justice community school model pilot program, which would include extensive community supports to assure that all our residents, all our students, were not just surviving, but thriving. You want to tell us a little more about that, what this would involve, a pilot school?
And so the model of a community school, it's very comprehensive. And so the idea that students are just have a, I don't want to say normal, but have a uncomplicated home life and can just come to school, sit down, buckle in, and study is not the dynamic that we're facing. And so the majority of the students in our schools and the majority of the students that are being caught up in the school to prison pipeline are students with what's considered high needs. And students with high needs are carrying baggage to school, trauma, hunger, witnessing domestic violence, things of that nature. And so a community school addresses all of those needs. So you don't just say, well, push all that stuff aside. I need you to sit down and turn to page 22. We're going to go over some math.
All right. So, but I suppose ideally this would happen for every student and at every school.
So the community school model, right? So we don't expect them to just kind of, change the whole district, although that would be beautiful, right? But what we're saying is, allow us the opportunity to develop a very comprehensive, well thought out plan to deal with one school and see how that works. See the comparison between what we've done historically and has not worked and trying something that is evidence-based, well-documented, and happening across the country.
Well, speaking of evidence, Chris, can you put on this slide? This is these are numbers you presented, student dropout numbers in the last school year, is that right? The last school year. So we're looking at, can you tell us what this means? Now for our radio listeners, I guess we'll have to tell them some of this, but we had, 109 students?
109 students total dropped out last year.
Dropped out. And all of those...
We put the highest populations, and so this isn't comprehensive, right, but the ones that had the highest numbers. And so of all, 70 were students with high needs. And if I can just read this little definition. So a high need student, as defined by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, are students at risk of educational failure or otherwise intended of special assistance or support as such as students who are living in poverty, who attend a high minority school, as defined by the Race to the Top application, who are far below grade level, who have left school before receiving a regular high school diploma, who are at risk of not graduating with a diploma on time, who are homeless, who are in foster care, who have been incarcerated, who have disabilities, or who are English language learners.
All right, that's, it seems to me that on its face, we should all be understanding of this. If a student is homeless, they're going to be in the high needs category. If they're hungry, and that's just a terrible, sad truth. If this, this is terrible that this would even happen in the United States. But this isn't the country we thought it was. If you've been looking at your declining income for the last 30, 40 years, so what happens, when mom and dad aren't working or there's problems in the family? This all understandably has an impact on the student, and frankly, as a society, we have an obligation to these children. So high needs, very large number. So this
more than half.
This supports your hypothesis then that students in this category are among the highest to drop out. And we all know in this society, it used to be you could get by with a high school diploma, then you had to have at least 2 years of college. Now, frankly, I don't know that there are jobs out there for kids if they don't have master's degrees. There's something really kind of wrong with the country right now, that we've lost all our manufacturing, and so students really need to have the highest level of education to just barely make it, I would say.
Yes.
And that's just a shame all around.
And it's important because the fact that we are kind of teaching towards the test, and that's a whole other issue I won't get into, right?
I might though.
let's say you're not one of those students that can pass a test, and you do drop out in this 70%. What have we, as Haverhill Public, taught you? We don't have the wood shops or even cooking home ec like I had. There's none of that stuff is there, and so
actually, I have to ask about that. I'm sorry to interrupt. We don't have those things anymore?
No.
I'm one of those who took those shop classes.
Yes.
Matter of fact, one of the reasons I can wire this switchboard is because I took it with Ron Sandville at Haverhill High School.
Everything is crunched, and learning time, what they have to pack into a school day, it's a lot.
I'm going to publicly call on Governor Baker. Back off on this standardized testing. It doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense. And frankly, our students are not getting a well-rounded education because we're so busy, teaching the number of questions on this exam. Governor Baker, back off. Pardon me.
So what I wanted to point out the dropout rates, because obviously that correlates with what we're talking about in the school to prison pipeline, and so the number of suspensions. I know you don't have this chart here, but
okay, I'm sorry.
All of more than half of the students that are suspended are also students with high needs, and so that correlates. Another thing is I wanted to dispel a myth here, because our Haverhill's demographic is specific, and so we're predominantly, I think, 65% white,
right,
and so. People think this only affects minorities because it disproportionately affects minorities, but our local numbers are 60%. 60 of these 109 students were male, 58 of them were white, 48 of them were students with disabilities. And so, if you want to know who we're talking about on a local level, this is who we're talking about here.
No, that's a very good point, and I didn't want to inadvertently, thank you for making that point. We're not talking just about minorities.
Absolutely not.
Minorities are disproportionately affected.
Correct.
But look at these numbers, 58 just white, 48 students with disabilities, and frankly, I have to flag that one. If students have disabilities, I'm not even sure why they're on this list. Why aren't they getting that one-on-one attention that they need? I know it's money. It's always money, isn't it? Well, maybe if we weren't spending so much on standardized testing, Governor Baker, we wouldn't be having this problem.
Well, the question is jail the answer for that? So we're grateful for Lindsay Heffernan of DYS that came and presented at the first forum, and what she said was the population that she sees in the DYS programs has shifted. And so it's not even these kids who are so behavioral and just bringing guns into school and bringing knives. It's half and half, that it's kids with disabilities. And you cannot really even serve both populations the same way. So we're doing both populations a disservice.
I imagine that this is, and I imagine some of our special education funding falls into some of this, and I don't know. We have a school committee that has the answers, I would hope, for that. Let me ask you about the school committee before we take another break. What was the reaction you received to telling the school committee and the administration that they're not in compliance with Massachusetts general laws?
I think they were shocked.
I think by reading their facial expressions, or did they say, "I'm shocked"?
By reading their facial expressions, although Paul Magliacetti and Sven Armenian did vocalize the fact that the numbers were alarming. I know that they have to check it So, however they cross-reference it, that's fine, because I said that the data hasn't come from me. It came from Harvard, and they would know much more about the law than I would. I was a social worker.
Were you speaking under the public presentation part of the school committee agenda?
No, I was fortunate enough that Maura, Ryan-Ciardiello did put us on the agenda.
You were on the agenda?
Yes.
All right. There's another issue about whether public presentation should be allowed at city council, but as long as you got on the agenda.
I think it's important because she was the only, and I reached out to every single one of the school committee members. I invited them to these forums. She was the only school committee member who was even willing to have this conversation with us. And we had some very important data to bring to the city.
Well, good for you, Maura, Ryan-Ciardiello. What kind of, you don't have to name any names, what kind of pushback did you get, or was it simply being ignored?
It was simply being ignored, and that was largely universal, both within the school administration, although I was able to get a meeting with Jared Fulgoni after about 2 months, and the school committee, most of them just didn't respond. And when I went, I have to say, in defense of them, it seemed as if they were not very well aware of what the school-to-prison pipeline was. And so maybe they didn't know what I was talking about when I said, listen, I'd like to talk to you about the school-to-prison pipeline. But that in and of itself is pretty alarming to me, because they need to know what this is. All of our elected officials need to be very well aware of what the school-to-prison pipeline is and how it affects our community. And honestly, the workforce. This is a much larger issue. That's why it's being looked at nationwide.
Do you have any data? I've heard, and this is anecdotal, I've heard this from more than one teacher in the Haverhill Public School system, that if a student begins in kindergarten in Haverhill Public Schools and then graduates, goes all the way through, stays in Haverhill and graduates from Haverhill High School, they tend, statistically, to be successful. That does not apply to when the student suddenly pops in the third grade, maybe a military family, or maybe some other reason they moved to Haverhill, or maybe pops out, pops in again in the 7th grade, comes back, comes in high school. Do you have any anecdotal data about what this transient student effect is, and how, maybe, I'm going to ask you, I'm asking you way too much, but how might it be addressed?
So what you're talking about, I've learned from the Working Cities team, is called a churn rate. And
of churn rate, okay.
A churn rate.
Andy Vargas, don't adopt another term like that, okay? He loves these terms, but anyway, sorry, Andy.
It's called, yeah. So the only one I know of because of the Working Cities team was the Tilton School. I know that they have a churn rate of about 34.
And that's the school that's performing the worst in the city.
Yes,
is that right?
Yes, they're
so we can make an
ranked
anecdotal.
number one, I believe. I want to say nationally. I'm not sure if that's accurate. They're in the top one. They're in the bottom 1%.
All right. Yes. Well, yeah, I did see those numbers, and it did come up in another debate, which we shall not go into tonight. But
obviously, what you're saying, I mean, the transience of kids coming in and out of the school, I feel like housing is an issue. Rent assistance, you have to be in evictions in order to get any kind of assistance. Typically you have to go into a shelter, and that means going to Worcester or Braintree or wherever there's an open spot. You can't say, oh no, I'm from Haverhill, I've got to stay here. And so that does cause children to have to get kind of ripped out of school and dropped into Haverhill schools as well.
Very interesting problem. All right,
they're not coming for our special education services, which has been hypothesized, I can tell you that.
All right, let's take a brief break. This hour, we're going to hear from our friends at Take Two Movie Review, and we'll be back with more of the Open Mic Show and my guest, Katrina Hobbs-Everett, in just a moment.
Open Mic!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
Those Boston stations don't always understand weather in the Merrimack Valley. Stay informed with Wave Weather every 30 minutes, 24 hours a day on Soft Gold WHAV.
Catch the wave!
The most trusted man in America, news anchor Walter Cronkite, once said, "It is absolutely essential in a democracy to have competition in the media, a lot of competition." That sentiment is one of the driving forces behind WHAV's expanded local news effort. This is News Director Dana Esmail inviting you to listen to my hourly weekday newscasts right here on WHAV. You'll also find the area's most comprehensive local news reporting at WHAV.net on your computer or smartphone. Remember, WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source, and it's always free.
And that's the way it is.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, a fresh take on a treasured classic. Despite the fact that there have been numerous big-screen adaptations of Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Book, for most people there is only one that comes to mind, and that's the Disney animated version from 1967. Upon hearing that Disney was planning to release a new live-action version, my first thought was why, as in why is it even necessary? As it turns out, this take on The Jungle Book is very good. Indeed, it may be even better than the animated version. The visual detail is simply stunning. Using the same visual effects that James Cameron used for Avatar, the filmmakers create a world that wouldn't have been possible even a decade ago. At times, it's impossible to remember that none of the animals or even most of the backgrounds are real. The one real character on the screen, Mowgli, is amazing. Played by an unknown 12-year-old Neil Sethi in his first acting role ever, Sethi is a natural in front of the camera with the sort of charisma that many seasoned pros might envy. His Mowgli is a likable, sweet kid who was never cloying. He doesn't want to leave his wolf family or his jungle, and his stubbornness to stay put regardless of the terrible danger around him is translated relatably. Furthermore, the challenges he faces of growing up and leaving childhood behind are universal. Add to this the impressive voice talents of Bill Murray, Ben Kingsley, and Christopher Walken, to name a few, and this film is well on its way to becoming a modern-day classic. Even if you don't have a kid, you'll want to catch this Jungle Book on the big screen. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
Catch the wave, WHAV, open mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
This hour of Open Mic being brought to you by the Merrimack Valley Economic Development Council. Smart companies choose the Merrimack Valley. Okay, we are here with Katrina Hobbs-Everett from the Power of Self-Education. I did mean it when I said I'd like to get someone here, either from school administration or school committee members, if they have anything they want to dispute about these numbers. Equal time. We're very fair, and you know, maybe there's some really good explanations about why some of this happened, but these numbers are startling. This is an independent review by affiliates at Harvard Law School. Is that right?
Correct.
Independent review of data the Haverhill itself submits to the state. This isn't like, you know, they got it off the back of something. This is data the school department submits itself. Massachusetts Advocates for Children sent this data off to their affiliates at Harvard Law School for review, and they came back saying at the high school level, school district is 89% non-compliant. 89% non-compliant at the kindergarten through grade 8 level, 74% non-compliant, and what are we talking about when we say non-compliant? Well, the state law and the regulations that accompany it say that if a student is expelled or suspended, and we all know this can happen almost run-of-the-mill, kids sometimes get into trouble. Only a minority of this is we're talking about are the violent offenses.
Sure.
These are just run-of-the-mill, kids get into trouble, but they're supposed to be getting some form of education while they're out of school. And the issues came up earlier that maybe, I'm just summarizing, folks, that, well, perhaps some can do an internet course. Well, that assumes they have internet. So let's pick it up where we left off. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us about
Sure,
this?
and this is from DYS, and so when they say, kids are going into jail, when you're going to, as a kid, that's where you go, is Department of Youth Services. And so this is where the state is coming from. And so it says the vast majority of discretionary suspensions, meaning not mandatory, are for violations of the school code and minor offenses. So again, this document, what we're talking about, that's our code of conducts. Students arrested in school are 2 times less likely to complete high school. If that same student appears in court, or he or she becomes 4 times less likely to graduate high school.
If they end up in court?
Correct.
Okay.
So,
I mean, that could be a sign of severity as well, that there is a court case, or...
Well, this is, again, under the population of these discretionary suspensions. So at no point in time when we're talking about this are we talking about students who have committed violent crimes. The only aspect we're saying there is they do have the right to access their education still.
Okay. All right.
Because people keep saying that too. These are kids that come in. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about non-drug related, non-violent offenses.
So when you say discretionary, you mean an administrator or a teacher perhaps says, "Hey, you're out of here. You've been disrupting the class," or whatever they come up with. This is that kind of thing. We're not talking about a student that showed up with a firearm or something.
Sure. One of the things we see a lot is disorderly conduct. What does that even mean, in the context of school assembly, right? So that area is very gray. And we would like for it to be much more defined.
We did this in school,
Yeah, right.
Is that disorderly conduct? Well, not if you're white, I guess.
Some of the things, if you look nationwide, that have been happening, a student popping a water bottle, right? Where you twist it, and it pops. Something like that. The little girl, we all know the story that came out of... I think it was Florida, the 5-year-old that was arrested for having a temper tantrum. The boy with ADHD who the teacher, he wasn't in line, and so the teacher closed the door. This happened in Boston. And so he ran into another classroom because he was left alone in the hallway, right? He's 5 years old.
Oh, right.
He was suspended.
It's funny you mentioned that. And I've seen some other horror stories, but we have this so-called zero tolerance, and frankly, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't know where it was. I don't think it was in Massachusetts, but when I was a kid, and I'm not saying that maybe things shouldn't change, but when I was a kid, I think I had cap guns, Western outfit and a Western hat, and I'm almost certain I showed up at school with a cap gun. Today, I think I would have been thrown on the floor, handcuffed, and sent to prison for life.
For sure. For sure.
It's amazing.
These are things that we can joke about, but I'm not going to bring the race factor that much into it because that's not our demographic here locally. But as an African American female, I don't allow my boys to have guns, water guns. It's an aspect that you can't even play that way, right? Because of the severity of what we're talking about. Kids have been shot, and not everyone is bad, and not everyone does that. But that's the reality, unfortunately, that as a minority, I do have to teach my children that's their reality.
It's funny. Tom Hartman, who is on afternoons at WHAV, he talks about white privilege, and a lot of people contest it. Say, well, what do you mean white privilege? Well, and he goes on to explain, and he makes perfect sense. He says, you never have to think about what happens when you've been pulled over for some minor offense. You're speeding or your inspection sticker has expired. When you're a white person, you worry much less about what happens to you. But it could be life or death for a minority, And this is what the Justice Department, U.S. Justice Department, talks a lot about. I don't think they're doing enough about it. I think Eric Holder was a terrible Attorney General, and Loretta Lynch is probably just as bad because they talk, but they do nothing. Anyway, my opinion.
I do have to give a kudo to Massachusetts, and that's kind of why we were upset that Haverhill is out of compliance, because the Chapter 222 law is the most comprehensive piece of legislation regarding school discipline that has gone on in 20 years. And so Massachusetts kind of is leading the way in that way, and it would be great if Lawrence is fully in compliance. Somebody asked me about comparison cities, and I won't go in because I don't know all of that data, but what we were told is that Lawrence, they are in compliance, and I know Lawrence did go into receivership, and maybe that had a lot to do with it, but they extended the school day,
Well, someone's
and they added a lot
watching
of
more
programs.
closely and paying more money. Chris, let me know if we can squeeze in if that's a call for us, and we'll wrap up with that. Let's, of course, now that he's on the phone, I can't ask him to put up this slide about taking the survey. Any other thoughts before we see if there's a call for us?
I wanted to read the statistic here because people might not understand how it translates to the larger systems. So education and employment, 43% of youth in detention did not return to school upon release. An additional 16% enrolled, and 16% enrolled upon release, but dropped out. So this population is obviously not going on to college. They're not moving into the workforce. So that nationwide, that affects us.
43% of detention.
43% of youth in detention did not return to school upon release. So it's not like they're coming out of DYS and just going right back into school and enrolling in schools, right?
My goodness, okay. Pretty serious numbers. Well, I do appreciate, Chris, can you put up the slide one more time for this survey? Where here's an address for radio listeners. Just Katrina suggests you just go on Facebook and look for a link at POSE, Power of Self-Education. Otherwise, if you're watching on television, there it is on the screen. Take the survey, and
you can even email me, and I can send it to them. It's POSECORP, posecorp@gmail.com.
Okay, posecorp@gmail.com if you want a link to the survey from Katrina Hobbs-Everett. As we wrap up then, what do you expect will happen next in Haverhill?
What I would love to see, again, because we are Power of Self-Education, is the community informing themselves, researching what is this issue, what does it look like, and kind of getting really curious to find out what can be done to kind of change the dynamic here locally, because what we'll need, what we're offering suggestion is that idea of the community school, and so we'll need the community's assistance in kind of preparing our village much better than we've done before.
Do you see there's going to be some more changes in the upper echelons of the school department, as WHAV has reported? Julie Kuchenberger is leaving. Do you see that as slowing down some progress while we interview and hire another person in this department, or?
I don't know if we could, no offense, I don't know if we could get any slower than we are right now, right? And so what I would like to see is, and I say that because I want them to really think through, the committee and the administration to really think through who should be in those positions and what they could bring to our community. And I hope that they have fresh ideas, and I hope that they are not afraid to vocalize their opinions and to kind of really push for change, because we can't just keep status quo. When the majority of our population, more than half, are students with high needs, we can't just do the same old status quo that we've done in this community.
Good point. It looks like that's the last word, but I will say that Tilton School, it comes up, and I think everyone in the city is concerned about some of the numbers they see, even though there's been some great progress, I understand, at the school. And I neglect, I can't remember the name of the principal, who's just done an outstanding job, I understand, turning that around. But folks, if you care about, I'm going to give this in another dimension. If you care about your money, your tax dollars, then isn't it better for you to get a student through college and higher and in a good paying job, so that they're not dependent on your tax dollars for assistance? Isn't it better for all of us that we see these students all the way through to successful careers? So the conservatives out there, just think about it. If you want to make it a pocketbook issue, there's one.
There is one.
So there we go. Thank you very much for
Thank
your coming out
Thank you for
again, your
having
time.
me.
And thank you really for your efforts on behalf of the community to raise awareness of this issue. Not just raise awareness, but actually start looking for a solution. We applaud you for that.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we're going to go to local news with WHAV News Director Dana Esmel, and local weather. We'll be back with more of the Open Mic Show after that.
Open mic!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
It's 8:02.
WHAV LP Haverhill. WHAV is a nonprofit community service of Public Media of New England, Incorporated.
Here's what's happening in local news. The Greater Haverhill Chamber of Commerce goes before the City Council Tuesday, seeking approval to hold their 2016 Kids Art Fest event in June within the downtown's Washington Square and surrounding areas. On Tuesday's meeting agenda, the City Council will consider the Chamber's permit application to hold the event, formerly known as Kids Fest, from 11 a.m. until 4 p.m. Saturday, June 4. A rain date would be Sunday, June 5th. In addition to annual requests the city waive vendor fees, organizers also seek permission to use electrical hookups, quote, from the Haverhill Housing Authority and Columbus Park Outlet. Quote, this year's celebration will continue to focus on promoting downtown businesses and nonprofit organizations, encouraging patrons to explore and shop with local retailers and restaurants. This year's festivities will kick off with a, quote, make some noise parade, Greater Haverhill Chamber of Commerce President Stacy Albergesi said in a letter. If approved by the council, it will be the second consecutive Downtown Kids Art Fest since an effort in 2014 by former chamber officials to relocate the downtown tradition to Kimball Farm in the outskirts near the Rocks Village area. As WHAV reported at the time, the chamber faced criticism over a lack of access to that event for inner-city children, despite an offer to provide free shuttle buses between downtown and Kimball Farm. The Haverhill City Council meets at 7 p.m. Tuesday in Theodore A. Pelosi Jr. Council Chambers at Haverhill City Hall. There is more at whav.net.
Business Bulletin.
In local business notes, Marcella L. Rivard has been named Chief Financial Officer at Holy Family Hospital, Methuen and Haverhill. Rivard, a certified public accountant with a master's degree in business administration, brings more than 30 years of experience in healthcare finance in the areas of physician group practices, community and teaching hospitals, consulting, and public accounting, according to the hospital. Rivard most recently served as Chief Financial Officer for the Department of Medicine, Harvard Medical Faculty Practice, Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in Boston. More in-depth coverage is at whav.net. Ongoing construction-related daytime street closures for utility work at the Harbor Place project on the eastern end of Merrimack Street are scheduled to continue at least 2 more weeks beginning Tuesday. The latest 2 days per week closures to through traffic with local access to downtown businesses are scheduled Tuesdays, May 3rd and May 10, as well as Thursdays, May 5th and May 12, according to Haverhill Economic Development and Planning Director William Pillsbury, Jr. Quote, full access will be maintained to local businesses, the Goki Deck and Pentucket Bank, Pillsbury said in a statement Monday. As WHAV reported earlier, the temporary Merrimack Street closures and through traffic detours onto House Street to and from Bailey Boulevard began in mid-March and were originally expected to occur through the month of April. The Pentucket Bank drive-through will be accessible through the parking lot in front of the lower-level parking deck entrance and exit onto the intersection of Merrimack, Main, and Water Streets during the closures. Polls in the town of Groveland are open Monday as local voters decide, among other things, a 2-way race for a seat on the Board of Selectmen and whether to approve funding a proposed new $750,000 fire department ladder truck. On the ballot, candidates William G. O'Neill and current Groveland Zoning Board of Appeals member Mark M. McCabe are vying for a selectman seat held by Joseph R. Damori, who is not seeking re-election to a 3-year term. In the only other contested race, incumbent Groveland Road Commissioner Robert P. Arakelian is being challenged in his bid for another 3-year term by resident William M. Daly. No candidates appear on the ballot for either a Board of Assessors seat held by incumbent town moderator William H. Dark or for a vacant seat each on the Board of Health and Planning Board. In 2 ballot questions, Groveland voters are also asked to decide whether to fund a proposed new fire ladder truck by either debt exclusion or a one-time, quote, capital exclusion assessment on real estate and personal property taxes. Quote, there is no guarantee of a fire truck. If people do not believe we need a fire truck, they can vote no on both questions, a town spokesperson said in a statement on the town website intended to, quote, address some confusion or misconceptions on the 2 questions. Quote, if people believe we need a truck and do care how to pay for it, voters should be selecting yes for the method they prefer and no on the other method. In the event of an exact tie, with both questions passing with the same exact vote count, the Board of Selectmen would choose which method to purchase with, end quote. Polls there will remain open until 8 p.m. tonight. Remember, WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source, and it's always free. In the Edwin V. Johnson newsroom, this is Dana Esmel.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm Mimi Chahaman. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry says progress is being made in talks aimed at extending a truce to the Syrian city of Aleppo. A cessation of hostilities has been in place in Syria for several months, but an increase in violence in Syria's second city threatens to derail peace talks. U.S. correspondent William Denslow reports.
John Kerry is in Geneva after the United Nations envoy to Syria, Staffan de Mistura, urged the United States and Russia to help curb a recent escalation in violence in the country. Several hundred people are believed to have been killed in Aleppo last week, with reports of government airstrikes and rebel shelling. Secretary of State Kerry says that the conflict is in many ways out of control, but adds that dignitaries are working to bolster a fragile truce. Members of the Syrian opposition left the peace talks in April, but they are set to resume at an unspecified date.
The United States says it has continued to carry out airstrikes against the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. Our U.S. correspondent Nick Harper reports.
The latest round of airstrikes on Sunday saw a total of 25 strikes in the 2 countries. The US-led coalition targeted 18 sites in Iraq, including tactical units, a financial centre, and a number of boats and tunnels, all used by the Islamic State. 3 of the 18 strikes hit the IS stronghold of Mosul. In Syria, the coalition made 7 strikes, hitting fighting positions and tactical units.
Hundreds of Cubans turned out to welcome the first U.S. cruise ship to arrive on their shores in decades. It's the first cruise ship to sail from the U.S. to Cuba since the island nation's communist revolution in 1959. Donald Trump is under fire after he claimed that China's trade policy amounted to the rape of America. His claim came on the eve of a primary election in Indiana that could see Mr. Trump finally secure the Republican Party's presidential nomination. Our Washington correspondent Simon Marks reports.
Even by Donald Trump standards, this was an outspoken remark, an accusation that will infuriate the Chinese, whom he accused of raping America through their trade policies. He's made the claim before, but never as a presidential contender. And now he may be on the eve of winning the Republican nomination. He's 15 points clear in Indiana, where Republicans vote tomorrow, and victory there could put him over the top in the quest to become the party's standard bearer in November.
Leicester City have won the English Premier League. Leicester are champions after the only team that could have caught them, Tottenham, drew with Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. They were 5,000 to 1 outsiders for the title at the start of the EPL season, but have won the title with 2 games to spare. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Wave weather.
I'm WHAV meteorologist Rob St. Pierre with Wave Weather. We're going to head through tonight with cloudy skies, some pockets of drizzle, areas of dense fog, especially at the coast, and we may see a few showers toward daybreak. Tonight's low will be somewhere in the mid-40s. Tuesday, it's a cloudy day with some showers. Temperatures will be somewhere in the low to mid-50s. The best chance of showers will probably be in the morning. And then Tuesday nights, mostly cloudy and foggy, maybe a shower down to 45. Clouds Wednesday, a little bit of sun, a few showers too, though, with a high 55. I'm WHAV meteorologist Rob St. Pierre. Your next wave weather in 30 minutes.
This is Pacifica Radio for the Merrimack Valley, WHAV. This is listener-supported community radio, WHAV LP, the Merrimack Valley's Pacifica affiliate.
WHAV Merrimack Valley Open Mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
And welcome back to the Open Mic Show. I'm your host, Tim Coco. Many thanks to Chris Porter, the man with at least 5 radio jobs now. His latest one, WATD. And that one he actually might get paid for, if I understand. I hope you don't mind my saying that. So anyway, so Chris Porter, round of applause for Chris for hanging in there week after week as I do this program. Also, I want to remind you this hour of Open Mic being brought to you by the Merrimack Valley Economic Development Council. Smart companies choose the Merrimack Valley. Check them out online at merrimackvalley.info. Okay, before we go to the calls, and I know there's several backing up now, let's just go through the list of things. One, we're accepting June birthdays and anniversaries. All you have to do is wish someone a happy birthday or a couple a happy anniversary on the air, and they could win a free 7-inch cake from Albie D's second-generation Italian bakery, 140 South Main Street in Bradford. If you haven't checked out Albie D's, really, it's a treat. Open every morning at 6 a.m. I think that's the middle of the night, as I always say. They have breads, pizza, cookies, mini pastries, pies, desserts, sweetbreads, specialty cakes. So, don't just wait to win a cake. Stop by there at some point. All right. Also, so it's really easy to win. You just call 978-374-1900. Give Chris the name. Come on the air and say, happy birthday, Jennifer. Or, let's do real life, happy birthday, Marcel, tomorrow. All right. Now, another contest we have, all you have to do is ask. No particular hurdles to overcome. We're giving away free tickets. Each ticket admits 2, worth $20. It's to the Haverhill Police All-Stars versus the All-Pro Patriots celebrity softball team. This is Monday, June 6th at Haverhill Stadium, 6 o'clock. Just ask, and we'll give you, as supplies last, as many as you need to go to that event. Also, we have the What Do You Know? Chris is not in the studio right now. He's taking a call. What Do You Know contest, and we have a trivia question, and if you answer the trivia question correctly, you'll receive a free pass, absolutely free, to Whittier Birthplace in Haverhill, 305 Whittier Road. That's right off Route 110 going toward Merrimack. Beautiful farm, 70 acres, and you learn a lot about the famous poet, John Greenleaf Whittier. Here's the question under our What Do You Know category. In what year did Whittier publish his last collection of poetry? That collection was called At Sundown. In what year did Whittier publish his last collection of poetry? At Sundown. All right, that's our second question. You can still take a shot at the first question. At what age did Whittier discover Robert Burns' poetry? So very easy, 978-374-1900. Let's, Chris, can I take that call now? All right, so okay. You are on the open mic. Are you there?
Hello?
Yes, you're on the open mic.
Hey, Tim. This is a concerned citizen of South Kimball Street.
a concerned citizen of South Kimball. You want me out of Bradford? Is that right?
No, Tim. I just want to touch upon what's going to happen tomorrow night at the city council meeting.
Okay,
Again,
please.
We're going to have what we call the grandstand of grandstanders.
All right, tell us
Because
about this.
A council as well, you know as well as the council of Beverlac was brought up this terrible thing that's going on in our city with the police going to these group homes, and 2 of them happen to be on my street.
Okay, yes, actually, yes. Please give us a perspective of someone on the street.
Well, perspective is that the group homes are actually working with the neighbors, and that not one of the councilors has actually come down the street to talk to anybody and find out what's going on. Instead, it's become this big media thing in the Tribune. I'm relatively surprised you haven't written about it yet, or actually put your spin onto it.
Well, actually, we have. We had a story last week, but I don't think it's didn't excite people as much because it's just the facts. But we had a picture it's on our website, whav.net. You'll see a picture of Captain Hawk on the story.
Oh.
But feel free to take a look. I'll bring it up while you're on the line. So city councilors haven't talked to you, but the group home managers have. Well, that sounds like a good sign.
Well, I mean, it's a good sign, but let's just look at it this way. I don't think that it's really excited the rest of the council with the discussion. I mean, there's been very minimal discussion other than the council of Beverlac, who keeps on bringing it up, that the police have been strained, that that the calls are outrageous, and it's in our neighborhood. And we South Kimball Street's no hidden secret to publicity in the paper. And as a resident of the street, we don't need this publicity. We don't need people down here, saying, well, the value of your homes are going to decrease. Real estate agents are even saying now the values of our homes are going to decrease because of these homes there, and because there's some bad eggs, and the police are always on our street. Well,
that's a good perspective. That's a good point. You don't want to bring down the value of your homes by a misperception out to the public.
I think it's a huge misperception. I think it's just headlines. The council is trying to get headlines in there to make a bigger stink than possibly what it could be, because of, at the end of the day, this is a state problem. This has nothing to do with the local. This is across the Commonwealth, from top to bottom. I've talked to the director of NTI, actually, again today, who's going to be coming in front of the council, Chris Tuttle. And this is across the state. Ever since they changed the juvenile laws and started closing these DYS facilities during the Patrick administration, when the cuts started happening, these are questions that the councilors should be asking of Representative Brian Dempsey, who's by far one of the most powerful people in the Commonwealth, if not the most powerful person, because he holds the checkbook.
Absolutely.
So
House Ways and Means.
He's looking at these cuts.
Well, just so you know, our story was April 28th. Councilors asked for group home state help in reducing pressure on police. So we did mention the state help. We also concluded that story by saying, and I think I called him Captain, Deputy Hawk, said some relief may be coming as certain group home operators work to decide when to report runaways or whether to delay calling police about older teens who probably are just going to come back on their own. And I said who may return on their own in the story. So, no, I think what you're doing is you're backing up WHAV's reporting, and we appreciate that.
Well, just the last point, Tim. What these facilities are housing, the kids that are within like a 20, maybe less than 25 mile to less radius from their hometown. Where back in the state's methods of the DYS days, and under the Children Need the Services Acts that were put in place back in those times, these kids would actually be taken completely away from the situation and not being allowed to be closer to home, so they could easily rehabilitate or seek the help they need. That's why now the laws have changed. Let's bring them close to their hometowns, and their friends could be at the top of South Kimball Street, where the Papagino's is, or the Rite Aid, from their hometowns, visiting them. And we have a runaway. And that's where, there's a lot of different reform that's been actually broken, and it needs to come back. And the state really needs to start looking at closely what they can do, because a lot of these kids are substance abuse patients too.
Actually, I'm sorry. What name can I call you by? What's your first name?
Steve.
Steve. Well, Steve, I really appreciate your calling and bringing this to the attention of WHAV listeners, because if you were just to look at other media, we'll say, you would think Brad was about to fall off the edge of a cliff. So we really appreciate your telling us what really is happening on the ground. Frankly, I'm really happy that you're taking such a compassionate approach to this, that you understand the situation and how we came to be working under these circumstances. So I really appreciate that you did that, and that means a lot to all of us. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for actually breaking the and, hopefully tomorrow night, I'll be speaking. I know that the council president has allowed the residents to speak of the street, which was requested by me to him, that he's going to allow us to speak. If any of my neighbors want to speak, we're more than welcome to speak of what we're living with on our street.
All right, and WHAV News will be covering the city council meeting, so we look forward to learning more. And we really appreciate your taking the time to call.
All right, thanks, Tim. I'll see you tomorrow night.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, bye.
All right, let's take we have another call on the line. We're going to take a break first for Community Spotlight with probably, is it Diane's? It's Diane's? Can you tell if it's Diane's? Diane Carr, I wanted to just point out, she's a volunteer, comes to WHAV once a week, done a wonderful job with our Community Spotlight program. You're going to hear her next, and we'll be back with one more call after that.
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
Are you listening to WHAV on cable television? If so, join WHAV in thanking the board, staff, and members of your local public access channel.
Johnny Dollar.
Johnny Dollar, in spite of writing the fanciest expense accounts in the industry, is in high demand by his employers. He's a freelance insurance investigator on the job only when the stakes are sky high. When murder or fraud covers a venal grab for profits, it's Johnny's job to facts from those involved. Detective work in all corners of the world is a specialty for yours truly, Johnny Dollar, one of your great Sunday listening treats on CBS Radio.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, airs at 10 p.m. Sunday night with an encore performance at 1 a.m.
Community Spotlight.
The Haverhill Council on Aging is planning a trip to Danvers Port Yacht Club for May's Elton John and Billy Joel tribute show. The concert takes place Tuesday, May 17th, and includes transportation, luncheon, and show. Cost is $89 per person. For reservations, contact Kathy or Rita at 978-374-2390. Someone you know is on WHAV. To submit or read your own nonprofit announcements, click on the Contact tab at whav.net or email news@whav.net. In the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, this is Diane Carr.
WHAV Open Mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
And welcome back to the Open Show this hour of Open Mic being brought to you by the Merrimack Valley Economic Development Council. Smart companies choose the Merrimack Valley. All right. We do have those of you who may have missed the news story last week on WHAV regarding the group home situation on the council agenda, and I guess we'll end up there again. Here's a photo of Deputy Police Chief. Well, Chris is telling me to wait. He's looking for it. You find it? All right. So it's a photo of Anthony Hawk. It's just a folder for TV. All right. Chris will put it up when he finds that. Meanwhile, let's go to the phones. You are on the open mic.
Good evening, Tim. I wasn't able to call in because I wanted you to get the scoop.
Oh, a scoop.
The scoop is the people showed up at the council chambers in Methuen to testify at the public hearing prior to the regular council meeting. There were at least 40 people testified against the totes.
Okay, so Methuen tonight. Council heard.
That's right, Methuen tonight.
Methuen having their own debate over trash toters.
Yes, and it wasn't very, very clear that the constituency and the council members don't want it. They didn't want it. They voted 8-1 against totes. There was only one councilor that voted for it. This is the mayor's proposal.
All right, so this is 8-1.
Message 8-1.
Methuen City Council. Who was the one who voted for it?
Mr. Atkinson.
Okay, Jamie Atkinson voted for it. All right.
It was 8-1. The other important thing, the Bradford people had a meeting this past week, right? It wasn't, from what I read in the paper and talking to Councilor Masick, who's been working on this problem very diligently. It was MBTA did not show up. They sent
That's
Keolis.
right. We had a story on that. Yes, Councilor Barrett
Keolis.
led
They
that.
sent Keolis. Although MBTA in 2010 signed a consent decree to improve or mitigate the problem, subsequent to that, they were required to send in monthly reports and quarterly reports for 3 years. During that period of time, they had 33 violations. 33 violations. They were fined $1 million, but only paid $290,000 or so. The excess was supposed to be used for mitigation, and here we are today with the same, relatively almost the same. Although one particular idling station is receiving some mitigation. I think it's in Westford, but they're not too happy because the BTA took by eminent domain 14 acres of their development land.
Oh, okay.
That's nice. And the other thing is, the clam beds are going to be open.
Clam beds open. Hey, Jerry, one second, please. Chris, I just wanted to show our viewers. I know our radio listeners can't see it, but our viewers, I wanted to show them the photograph we have of Deputy Police Chief Anthony Hawk.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I just want to get it on there because I said we would. There's a picture of a Deputy Police Chief at City Council. It's not something you see every day, and I just wanted our listeners WHAV is on top of that story, and we're also on top of the one you're bringing up, Jerry. We had a story recently with Melinda Barrett talking about it,
yes, that's right.
And she is concerned that, well, one of those mitigation measures was to put it in Plastow, New Hampshire, and the voters said no.
They certainly did.
So what does that tell you?
The other thing that was in the Tribune, basically the spokesperson for Keolis, who was an attorney, said all we want to do is idle 55 minutes. That's in violation of the DEP and the noise regulations. They're only supposed to be allowed 30 minutes, not 55. So the person who was talking for the MBTA was in error. It wasn't received very. I don't think.
Listen listeners and viewers, Jerry worked for that department for 50 years, so he knows.
Yes, yes. Well, anyway, the other thing is the clams are opening. The clam beds are opening for what is it called? Recreational. But the Tribune was wrong. They said the clams have to go up to the plant to get washed. That's not correct. The clams have to go up there to depurate. It's a depuration plant. The clams are from these types of areas, like what is it, the Parker River area?
Yes.
They're supposed to have what's called depuration.
What does that mean?
It means that they cleanse themselves. An ordinary mollusk of soft-shell clam will filter 25 gallons in a period of 24 hours.
Really?
Yeah.
Like a gallon an hour.
So that's right. And so what happens is they get depurated, and the digger, whoever dug it, can pick up his nuggets of gold.
All right.
And go get in his car and go right to Maine to Salem. No, he can't do that.
I understand, but making me hungry, Jerry.
Here is, it's going to be an awful tough job for the clam digger, for the clam warden, to keep aware of who's digging, how much they're digging, and make sure that the clams go to the depuration plant.
All right, I'm starting to heat my melted butter now.
Yeah, well, you better get out there and dig them yourself.
All right, hey Jerry,
bring them up to the clam washer, as the Tribune had it, for depuration, not to be washed, but to be depurated.
All right, no, I'm going to have Chris.
All right, thank you.
Hey, Jerry, thank you so much for the report on City Council.
That's a big thing with the toast, isn't it, huh?
Yeah, let's see what the reaction is in Haverhill to that.
Methuen voiced their opinion. There were 150 people in that audience.
Well, does
40 of them
does Methuen Council have final say and the mayor override them?
That's the question. That's the big question. What will you think might happen if the mayor tried to push this thing through?
Well, I would.
It would be a potential recall.
Yeah, well, yeah, I would wonder. I don't know how the Methuen budget process works. Now, in Haverhill, it actually was really decided 6 months ago when the council approved the budget. But actually almost a year ago now, when the council approved the city budget. So I don't know how Methuen works. Did the council vote on a spending plan?
8-1, a resounding 8-1. Oh boy!
All right, so we'll have
We'll
more.
have to watch that, Tim, to see if the mayor wants to push this thing through. Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to be watching this carefully, and thank you to our eye on the news in Methuen, Jerry. Thank you so much, Jerry.
And the former head of the shellfish program for the Commonwealth.
Such an expert on clams. Is that my butter ready yet? Okay.
Yeah. Where's Woodman's? How do I get to Woodman's restaurant?
All right, well, we're all going to go. Let's get a bus. All right. Thank you, Jerry.
Good night.
Good night. Bye. All right, for some reason, we're still on TV, even though we're late. So we're going to up the program now. Many thanks to Haverhill Community Television for keeping us on. We'll be back next week. I'm not quite sure what happened with Scott. Maybe he thought with Katrina on there wouldn't be time. We'll try to reschedule that discussion of Parkinson's disease, and we'll be back with that. So meanwhile, good night, everyone. We'll be back next Monday night right here on The Open Mic.
Open Mic!
Join Tim Coco live on The Open Mic again next Monday night at 6:30. The opinions expressed on The Open Mic Show are not necessarily those of WHAV, its underwriters, or affiliated stations. The Open Mic Show came to you from the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom.